everybody, welcome back. YouTube.com/Geek Aloud for another Let's Install. Today, it's Resident Evil 3 native Xbox Series X edition, obviously going on to an Xbox Series X. Now, this game was released middle of last year, June or July last year. The Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 version came out. This will be my first time going hands-on with this iteration. However, I did play the Resident Evil 3 remake back in, 2020, when the first Resident Evil 3 came out for the PlayStation 4. That install is available back a couple of years ago on the channel. But today, it's the Resident Evil 3 next-gen upgrade release. As I said, about 6 months old at this point. And I can tell you currently coming into no, it's over there. An Xbox Series X. You're looking at a 23.20 gigabyte download. Obviously, once it's installed, that package will have expanded somewhat, and I'll get you a full install size at the end of this video. Of course, we'll bounce on out and check the particulars. I'll get you a version number and the complete and full install size. But that's at the end of the video. What I'll note here at the start is, one, I picked this up about a month ago at this point. It was available in early January as part of the, I don't know if it's the New Year sale, I think they called it, on Xbox. I think it was about 60% off. I believe I paid $30 for both Resident Evil 2 video, which went up on the channel yesterday, and then Resident Evil 3 install going up on the channel. Obviously, Friday night install for some late night spooky action here on Geek Aloud. Resident Evil 3 obviously is the remake of the 1999 Resident Evil 3 Nemesis PlayStation 1 absolute classic and gem. My favorite little factoid about this game is that the Nemesis, as you can see there, the big old bloke on the thumbnail over yonder, he was based on, like, the inspiration for the character was based on the T-1000 from Terminator 2. Dun, 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 Judgment Day, one of my all-time favorite films. And of course, the Nemesis is a sort of a nod to that terrifying, unstoppable, evil force that's just hunting you down relentlessly. I'm a big fan of Resident Evil 3. The remake sat very well with me. I'd go out on a limb and say Tagaro is probably a somewhat large fan of Resident Evil 3. Of course, his favorite is Resident Evil 4, but I suspect some of this game helped lead into the fun of Resident Evil 4. But check out here, old mate on the thumbnail. Tell me that isn't Unky Dunky with maybe a slightly younger hairdo on him on the thumbnail there. But the other thing I can tell you, look up there, you can see over that way, Hi-Fi Rush and GoldenEye. We discussed our hands-on impressions, myself, Unky Dunky, and Bully, last night on episode 59 of the Gaming Enforcement Agency. If you missed that one, it was an absolute ripper. Not only could you go back a couple of videos on the channel and check out last night's episode with, of course, the full visual flair, as it is an interactive TV show at its core, but if you're not into that sort of thing, if you're just like the audio-only version of the podcast, I'm happy to let you know that the Gaming Enforcement Agency is now just that, an audio-only podcast, available Spotify, iTunes Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, anywhere you can get a podcast. You can now search up the Gaming Enforcement Agency. Do yourself a favor, listen to episode 59, our hands-on impressions of, as I said, both Hi-Fi Rush, GoldenEye 007, but also the great, fantastic Dead Space remake. We discussed episode 3 of The Last of Us HBO show, and SpongeBob SquarePants, my big favorite. And of course, go one video back on the channel. Bully did about a half-hour Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants and the Cosmic Shake. All this great content is available right here, youtube.com/Geek Aloud. But for now, let's install Resident Evil 3, shall we? We'll be right back. installed Resident Evil 3. Let's boot it on up now. Oh, got to turn on your old controller first. It's the Elite Series 2 controller. There's a lot of hate going around for these things online, but I got to say, an absolute legendary controller. The ability to remap the L1, R1 buttons, or LBRB on Xbox land, to the top paddle buttons, such a huge saver for my old arthritic knuckles. On top of that, I've remapped L stick in, left stick in, right stick in, LSRS, to the bottom paddle, so I don't have to push down, I don't have to pull up. Best thing ever. I highly recommend it. Subtitles off, thank you very much. Sound output device, TV, yeah, that'll essentially do us. I'm not going to go through the brightness here. As you can see, I've got two great big whopping studio lights in my eyes. So, by all means, take the time to set it up for yourself. But for here, we will just leave it all on defaults to get through it. Now, we went through this yesterday. Check out the ray tracing off. Kind of a bland old looking fridge, but you turn it on, look at the reflection there on the thing, all the, the light rays bouncing off the objects, hitting the reflective surface, and then fully reflecting properly. It's an absolute thing of beauty. I liked yesterday in Resident Evil 2's install, you saw the corridor, and it's way more obvious in the corridor how cool it looks in game. And who's looking at empty fridges in games? Well, not empty fridges, but anyway. Won't worry about that. And the higher graphics, we couldn't work that out yesterday either. All right, let's jump on in. That was all for Resident Evil 2 yesterday. When I say yesterday, I mean the Resident Evil 2 install, available a couple of videos back on the channel. Controls, nothing I would recommend changing there. Camera controls, look at this. Field of view, I say rack it all the way up. Larger situational awareness. You'll thank me later when there's less jump scares. And as you can see there at the bottom, camera wobble. If you're susceptible to motion sickness, turn off the camera wobble. It'll help you not feel car sick, I guess is the correct way to phrase it. Motion sickness maybe might be better. Audio, standard fare there. Language, as I said, I turn the subtitles off. I get so easily distracted. Subtitles are no good for me, but the rest is fine. Graphics, as I said, ray tracing on, 100% do that. High frame rate mode. I can't for the life of me work out what configuration my Xbox needs to be in to enable that high frame rate mode, unless, of course, it means 120 frames, which my monitor can't do. That's the only other possibility I'm thinking there. Play data settings, share your data with them. I highly recommend you do it, because if there's any rough spots, if there's a boss that's too hard, if a bunch of people bounce off at a certain point, the developers know to go back and modify that section of the game. But that is all the options we need to look at for Resident Evil 3 native Xbox Series X edition. As I said, it's about 6 or I guess 7 months old at this point. But let's bring up the particulars, and I can tell you, currently version 2.0.0.2 for Resident Evil 3 on the Xbox Series X, and that is it's up there, a full and complete install size of 32.2 gigabytes for this absolute gem of a game. I highly recommend you go hands-on with it. Do you like the Resident Evil series as much as I do? It's Friday night. I tell you what, pick them up and play them. You're going to love it. Enjoy the jump scares late on a Friday night. You don't have to get up early in the morning. Go on, treat yourself to some video game action. Oh, the other thing you can treat yourself to, the Gaming Enforcement Agency, episode 59 last night. The standoff was best multiplayer experiences on the Nintendo 64. Of course, the winner was going to be GoldenEye, so we eliminated GoldenEye from the option as it just came out, obviously, on the Xbox Game Pass last week. So, ignoring GoldenEye, obviously the clear winner, what was the second best, I guess we essentially asked, multiplayer experience on the Nintendo 64? This is before the days of online multiplayer. So, of course, we're talking about couch co-op. What did you and your mates sit around and play, throw chips and drinks at each other when you're upset? Check out our thoughts and impressions last night on Gaming Enforcement Agency, episode 59. If you don't have time to watch the video on YouTube, you can, of course, pick it up as an audio podcast. Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes podcasts, and Amazon podcasts. Anywhere you can get a podcast, you can get the Gaming Enforcement Agency. As I said, episode 59 standoff was best multiplayer games experience on the Nintendo 64. That wasn't GoldenEye because, of course, that was the winner for everyone. What else can you do with Geek Aloud? Like it, subscribe it, you'll never miss it.